Let's dive into one of the biggest questions in all of human history. Where did civilization actually begin? And I'll give you a hint. If you're thinking of Greece or Rome, you might be in for a surprise. You know, when someone says the dawn of civilization, our minds pretty much automatically jump to places like the Parthenon in Greece, right? Or maybe the massive Colosseum in Rome. I mean, these are the icons, the foundations of the Western world. But here's the real question we have to ask. Were they the first? Did these incredible societies just pop up out of thin air? Or were they building on a blueprint, a kind of instruction manual that was written somewhere else, thousands of years earlier? Well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack. To get to the bottom of this, we need to talk about what experts call the Cradles of Civilization. And more specifically, we need to focus on this really exclusive club known as the Pristine Six. Okay, so look at these 6 spots on the map. They are incredibly special. These are the handful of places on the entire planet where the whole experiment of civilization, we're talking big cities, complex governments, writing, it all started completely from scratch, independently. So who's in this club? First up, you've got Mesopotamia, nestled between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Then there's ancient Egypt, powered by the legendary Nile. We've got the Indus Valley, ancient China along the Yellow River, the fascinating cultures of the Andes in what's now Peru, and the Olmecs down in Mesoamerica. Just look at those deeds. Some of these places were thriving for thousands of years before anyone even thought about building Athens or Rome. So you might be wondering, why these 6? What's the secret password to get into this club? Well, it's not some random list. There's a very specific checklist a culture has to meet to be considered a true original cradle. And it all boils down to this one crucial idea, pristine origin. What that means is they figured it all out on their own. They invented the very concept of a city, of writing things down, of having a king or a government, without looking over their neighbor's shoulder for the answers. They were the originals, the architects. So, how do we know this for sure? Well, experts basically act like detectives, and they analyze the clues through 3 different lenses. They look at the archaeology, the history, and the sociology of a place. So first, you've got the archaeological lens. This is the hard, physical evidence. We're talking about the emergence of real cities, not just a bunch of scattered villages. We're looking for monumental architecture, things like pyramids or ziggurats that are so huge they would have required a massive, organized society to build. And of course, new technologies, like making metal tools or sophisticated pottery. Then we switch to the historical and sociological evidence. This is where you see the invention of writing, like cuneiform in Mesopotamia or hieroglyphs in Egypt, which is a total game changer for keeping records and telling stories. You also find proof of a central government run by a king or a pharaoh, and a society that's clearly split into different levels, with elites at the top and artisans and farmers forming the base. Okay, so now that we've got our checklist for what makes a pristine cradle, let's circle back to our big question. Where does that leave Europe? How do early cultures like the Greeks and Romans measure up against this list? This chart really nails the key difference. On one side, you have the primary cradles, the inventors, the ones who started from a blank page. And on the other, you have secondary developments, the ones who took that existing blueprint and then adapted it, remixed it, and made it their own. And based on all the evidence, this is exactly where early Europe fits in. The Minoan civilization on the island of Crete and the Mycenaeans on mainland Greece, who were the direct ancestors of the classical Greeks, were absolutely foundational for the West. But they weren't pristine. They had a little help. As the source material puts it so well, they adopted and adapted key technologies. Things like their writing systems, their knowledge of how to work with metals, even their ideas about how to plan a city. A lot of that was heavily influenced by their contact with the much older civilizations in the Near East, like Mesopotamia and Egypt. So if all of these brilliant ideas were traveling, who was carrying them? Well, a huge piece of the puzzle can be answered with one word: the Phoenicians. They were some of the greatest seafaring people the world has ever seen. This map is just fantastic. It shows you exactly how this worked. You can literally trace the flow of ideas and technology starting in Mesopotamia and Egypt and then spreading out across the Mediterranean like ripples in a pond. And the people making those ripples? That was the Phoenicians. I mean, these people were incredible sailors and traders. They set up colonies all over the place and created this vast network. But they weren't just trading stuff like timber and wine. They were trading ideas. And probably their most famous contribution was spreading their alphabet, which became the direct ancestor of the Greek alphabet, the Latin alphabet, and yep, the very alphabet we're all using today. And if you need one more mind-blowing fact to tie this all together, get this. The very name Europe comes from Greek mythology. It comes from the story of Europa, who was a Phoenician princess from the Near East who was taken to the island of Crete. The entire continent is literally named after someone from one of these older cultures. So, what's the big takeaway from all of this? Does it somehow diminish the incredible achievements of Greece and Rome? Absolutely not. Not at all. It just helps us reframe their story and understand it more accurately. This timeline really puts it all into perspective. You can see the flow across thousands of years. It starts with these incredible innovations in Mesopotamia and Egypt. Then you see the Phoenicians spreading them across the sea. The early Greeks adapt them. And finally, the Romans inherit all of it and build their own empire on top of those foundations. So in the end, Europe's incredible story isn't one of pristine, independent origin. It's a story of something just as impressive: brilliant adoption, brilliant adaptation, and a genius for synthesis. For taking all these powerful ideas and weaving them into something new and uniquely its own. Which leaves us with one last big question to think about. If pretty much all of civilization is built on shared and borrowed ideas, on standing on the shoulders of giants, what does it really mean for any culture or any idea to be truly original?